Hey guys, welcome to the Quick Talk Podcast, the only show handcrafted for small business entrepreneurs looking to explode their business. It's time to get your mind right so you can get your grind right. Are you ready?
I was a massive failure. Part of it was arrogance and assuming that I had a better understanding of how the retail market works than I did. When you spend that kind of money and you have those kinds of results, it's very eye-opening.
Hello, everybody. This is Josh Latimer coming to you with the Quick Talk Business Podcast, where my job is to bring you no fluff, actionable business insights that you can apply to your business right now. And today I get to talk to a guy from California, totally other side of the country from where my business was, who's doing really interesting things in the cleaning space. His name is Mr Rall. Now, he used to be a business consultant in Europe. He has a financial background. He's a complete financial nerd in a sense, but for whatever reason, he's in the cleaning business and he's buying companies all over the country, growing a huge network, multi-million dollar business. And he's just an interesting story. And we're going to focus in on some really cool topics today that's going to help you understand what it takes to get your business sold, what you need to set up, and in that entire process. Matt, thanks for taking time out of your day. How are you doing?
Hey, Josh. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come on to this show.
Oh, you got to be kidding me. We're so thankful to talk to someone like you because I think the cleaning industry is a highly fragmented industry. There's not a lot of consolidation. There's companies everywhere, under every rock, around every corner. A lot of them really aren't even companies, but they're more owner-operators. And out of all those hundreds of thousands and millions of businesses, not a lot of them end up getting to the place where they can be acquired. And your business is in the business of finding those people and then, acquiring them. And then you got a whole nother side of your business, just the growth and the focus you have with your call center. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about, your background and your upbringing? How did you go from, business consultant in Europe to cleaning business? How does that even happen?
Absolutely, sure. Well, I think it's, I don't come from an entrepreneurial background. My father was actually a Lutheran missionary. I was born in Papua New Guinea, moved to St. Louis and grew up in St. Louis for most of my childhood. I went into sales and marketing when I got out of college and shifted then into management consulting. I was doing got an MBA and was over in Europe. My wife was teaching at an international school. And so I spent some fantastic time there. And when we came back to the U.S., my brother and I had always tossed around the idea of trying to go out on our own and run a business. And we found a third partner who was a senior partner and a great advisor. And we decided to try to make a go at it. And we were really looking for something that would allow us to scale. We didn't really have our eyes set on the cleaning industry per se, but that's just the direction that we ended up being led. And that's where we found a business we thought it looked attractive that could grow quickly, and that's really kind of how I got into the business. And now it's 2.5 years later, and here we are.
Yeah, and one good key point here for everybody listening is that the type of business you're in probably isn't as important as some people think, right? I mean, all businesses have similar architecture. They have, sales, they have a product, they have a margin, they have a return on investment depending on how much you pay for the business up front. And those are really just financial numbers on a sheet in a sense. Is that kind of how you look at it?
Well, I think from our perspective, that's probably true because we were trying to find something that would allow us to grow and grow quickly. And so there were some attributes in the business model that needed to be present. And, we were kind of industry agnostic. I guess that would be, and that differs by entrepreneur, it differs by business person, because obviously if you have a kind of steeped, vertical knowledge in some specific industry trade set, then you wouldn't be able to do that. But my background is much more kind of cross-functional and is more of a management role anyway. So from my perspective, I really wanted to find a business that I thought could grow and then take it and see what we could do with it.
Right. Okay. Well, that's cool. And one thing I want to point out is the call center model you have, which when you first had told me about that, I was kind of skeptical, like, what? A call center? What are you talking about? But, after digging in and learning more about what your guys are doing and more importantly, the results that they get, it's unbelievable. And as a cleaning business owner, you got people in pest control, carpet cleaning, all kinds of service industries listening to this right now. I think we way underutilize the phone. So can you tell us about why that is part of your model? How did that come into play, and how big of an important piece is that in your business?
Well, I think, most of that kind of can be attributed to our senior partner, and he had a direct marketing background. And so what I see a lot of times is when I look at other businesses, one of the biggest mistakes I think businesses make is that they're reactive. They wait for the phone to ring. They put out a website, maybe stick out a few flyers, and then wait for the phone to ring. And that kind of approach, especially with the competition in an industry such as ours, ultimately is not going to help you grow. In fact, you'll probably be working to just replace the last client you had. So, really for us, direct marketing is about building a long-term relationship with each client, and that's what it comes down to, so that the client is getting repeated touches, and it doesn't even have to be every call doesn't have to be a sales call, but just touching the client and letting them know, hey, we're still here. Hey, we added this other service. Just wanted to check in how everything's going. That builds loyalty, and ultimately that's what helps. That's what helps drive growth.
Absolutely, one of the biggest oversights with the little guy businesses, people doing less than $1 million, less than $500,000. They don't manage the customer relationship, and I call that relationship marketing. And they never pay attention to customer attrition. They don't even say that word a lot of times. And it's a big blind spot because there's customers leaving out the back door that you're not replacing in the front door. And you don't realize it, but that's why a lot of guys spin their wheels and never get the growth they want. Is that right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the other thing you have to realize is that a happy customer is going to be a customer that refers you and gives you more business. And so that 20-second call the day after you've done that, roof cleaning or house cleaning or whatever it may be, just to say thank you. Well, I appreciate your business. I'd love to, any other contacts that in the area that may be interested, if you could pass on my name or if you give me their phone number, those types of things, they're simple to do, but most people don't do them, and it's a big miss because I think saying thank you to a client is one of the biggest things that we forget to do. And
Absolutely.
You tell them thank you, and all of a sudden you want a customer.
Absolutely. And you get them for life. It's unbelievable. There's a psychological trigger, and I'm getting fired up now because we're moving into kind of my wheelhouse of what I'm passionate about right now. You trigger a thing in their brain called the gratitude effect. And for everybody listening, if you don't sincerely and genuinely thank in a unique and memorable way every customer after every job, you are flat out missing the point. You're leaving money on the table, and it will hurt your business. And it's such an easy thing to do. I mean, pick up the phone and say thank you. Send a thank you card. Send a thank you email. Do something, for God's sake. It's powerful to manage that relationship from the point of the transaction when you do the work all the way through until the next time that you do the work. And that gap, that window, is completely overlooked so often.
Absolutely.
Are you looking for a simple way to get more sales, more referrals, and strengthen your customer loyalty? Look no further than sendjim.com. It was handcrafted for you as a powerful tool that will automate your follow-ups after the sale. Imagine being able to stay in contact with your customers all year long by pushing a single button on your smartphone. This is a space-age warp speed technology, and it will eliminate the chaos inside your business caused by trying to properly follow up with all of your leads and customers. Sign up for a free trial with no credit card required at sendjim.com right now. What are you waiting for? Yeah, well, here's the deal, too. With the acquisitions, I'm really curious to get into this because I get a lot of questions about this. I get a lot of questions from guys wondering, how does it work? How do I value my business? How could I sell it if I wanted to someday? They don't know, right? They don't have that financial background with their business. Maybe they're just a technician type person. Whatever the reason is, it's not clear to people out there how the process works on a professional level. Could you, in a nutshell, break down, what companies like you look for when you want to acquire a company, and how that process works? What things need to be in place? What types of paperwork? Just give us an overview, if you could.
I mean, when we look for companies to buy, we look for a couple of things. First of all, we look for companies that have a certain amount of scale already, because we're looking to acquire companies that are going to be able to immediately plug into our system and have more customers to interact with and more customers to call. And so one of the very first questions I'll ask anybody that I'm looking to buy business from is, how big is your customer list? How many people are in your database? The more people in the database, the better feel I have that this is a business that I might be interested in, might be able to take and really rev up the growth. We look at revenue to understand the revenue. From the position of the seller, what I often find is most sellers, especially in kind of the lower market, if you will, and when I say lower market, I just mean kind of a smaller size, call it less than $1 million in revenue. Many times the seller is not sophisticated around kind of their finances, and they haven't taken the time, just haven't spent the energy to really put their books in order. I would say any potential seller out there is looking to maybe sell their business someday. One of the best things you can do is invest in a CPA.
Yeah, absolutely. And partnering with professionals in those areas, it's good for multiple reasons. Number one, you suck at books. Yeah, you, the person listening to this. Like, you're probably not an accountant. I hate accounting. So stop punishing yourself. Stop being a cheapskate and bring in a pro to handle such a critical part of your business.
Absolutely. I mean, nothing turns me off more than when, I ask for simple, the first things that, that I'm going to ask for are things like a P&L and a balance sheet. And if those things can't be, readily grabbed and picked up, I get nervous, because that means that the process of trying to learn and understand the business is going to be further, complicated by the fact that the seller doesn't actually understand kind of where everything is.
Right,
If
and
that makes any sense.
That happens a lot because the guys that own the company, and these are smart people, they're very good at their tech, at their skill. Their customers love them. Their employees love them. There's a lot of really good businesses out there. But here's one big thing that's missed. Is the owner is way too involved in the field, right? And so they don't have time to properly, build out the health of their books, their finances, the numbers, and that's kind of the pulse, if you will, of the business's value and the asset value, is having that stuff cleaned up. And if you're on a ladder all day, you don't have time to go back and do that. They're not thinking about it.
Well, I think that leads you to another really good insight just from what I've learned, Josh, which is if you're looking to someday sell your business, you need to figure out a way to almost remove yourself from the business. And that may sound a little bit odd, but if you're Bill and it's Bill's window cleaning, and Bill, you're the only person that ever cleans every customer's windows, and they all know you by name, you will have a very hard time selling your business.
That's
because
right.
When I come in, I don't want to buy Bill.
Right.
I want to buy that customer list. I want to buy those opportunities. But if the customers are completely, wedded to Bill, it's going to be a very difficult transition. I'll probably lose a lot of those clients. It's probably not a business I would be interested in. So
Absolutely.
There's an element of removing yourself from the business so that you actually have a business that if you stepped away from it, will continue to run. Customers will continue to call. You would have, employees that would continue to go out and do whatever the work is that you're doing. Does that make sense, Josh? Am I explaining that correctly?
Completely. It's so clear. It's crystal clear, because everybody uses the phrase business owner, right? But we're not correctly administering that phrase, okay? Because the phrase business owner should mean that you, as the CEO, can step outside of the business and it still produces profit without you touching it. And people blend the business owner with the concept of someone who's self-employed. And those are not the same thing at all, but they're used interchangeably when people talk. People say, oh, I'm going to start a business. Oh, cool. Or yeah, I own a business. I own a painting business. Well, you don't really own a painting business if you're the painter, if you're Bill, if you're the guy, because there's no asset there. There's no machine that produces profit. Your body is the machine, and if you get hurt, you're done. The thing will evaporate. And of course, Bill's customers love Bill. Bill's the man. But here's the secret: if only Bill early on in the business would have realized, maybe he calls it excellent window cleaning instead of Bill, right? Bill's window cleaning. And then he still performs great service. And he goes through these years, and the customers still love the company, but it doesn't attach to Bill. And then he slowly, removes himself with quality staff that he invests in. Now he has a real asset. And now it's a different scenario at the end of that.
Absolutely. And I think you just brought up a point there at the end about the quality of the people. And I can't stress enough, from just the acquisitions that I've done, and I've bought quite a few businesses now in the last couple of years, the people will make or break you in any acquisition. Mm-hmm. And this is true also of a business owner, as you all know, as you're running a business. But when I look at a business, I want to meet those key people. I want to know who they are. I want to know the roles they play. I want to know how loyal they are to the seller. I want to know if they're going to stick around, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to buy a business in a different state with a great staff that the day you buy the business, the staff leaves.
Yeah, and that's a real risk. I mean, that's got to be one of the biggest things you're watching for.
Absolutely, and I mean, at the end of the day, the employees that are they're actually in the weeds, and they're actually grinding out day to day. Those are the keys to successful businesses. And so, I've learned a lot. I've had a lot of failures and a few small successes in acquisitions, but the failures can consistently be attributed to underestimating the power of the people that were already there and the roles they would play going forward.
Well, that's a perfect transition point, because I want to ask you next about, some of the bad days that you've had. Your company's doing humongous. You have over 100, team members throughout all of your companies. It's a big operation. It really is. But that's not all lollipops and cotton candy. I totally get that. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of work involved there. You have to travel a lot. But through that whole process through the last few years, Matt, what's kind of like the biggest mistake or blunder you've made? I don't know, maybe with an acquisition or the way you handled a scenario with someone? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, my first year, and somehow I got the idea in my head that I was a retail expert, and I decided to rent a kiosk in a mall and hire a designer to build out all these graphics around the kiosk. And I was going to run it for 2 months during the holiday season, and I had all these visions of all this money I was going to blow this out. And across the entire 6 weeks, I managed one sale.
Wow.
Out of that kiosk. One sale.
Wow. And what were you trying to sell? Was it cleaning services or Christmas lighting or something?
It was Christmas light installation, window cleaning. We were just kind of trying to introduce our business. We were very new. It was in one of my markets. It was a massive failure. Part of it was arrogance and assuming that I had a better understanding of how the retail market works than I did. When you spend that kind of money and you have those kinds of results, it's very eye-opening.
I bet it can. I appreciate you sharing it and the honesty. I mean, you're such a genuine guy, and all of us make mistakes. And I one of my favorite quotes, Matt, is "Pain is an excellent teacher," because it is, man. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that was bad. Note to self. I mean, that's going to be hard-coded into your brain now. Next time you're looking at something like that. I had a similar blunder with a radio campaign we spent $5,000 or $6,000 on, kind of at the midpoint of my business, and I just thought we had all this swag, and we were just gonna make $1 million, and it was a total epic fail. So I hear you on that, and I appreciate that very much. Okay, so let's transition into some of the bullet points for preparing a business for sale. I want to give some of the guys a couple ideas of maybe some of the documents they need, and then maybe let's talk a little bit about valuation and how that works. I know that's kind of a broad thing, but let's dig into the documents. I know you got to have your P&L. You got to have a balance sheet. Can you explain what a balance sheet is, and then maybe a couple other documents that are important?
Sure. Well, I mean, a balance sheet and an income statement are kind of the two core things that if you're running a business day to day, and most, I assume that most of the small business owners on the line are using QuickBooks. So a lot of this that's a great aid to kind of work through these documents. But the balance sheet will show you, what are the assets, what are the liabilities of the business, and what is left in shareholders' equity. And that piece is one important part of the story, and the income statement is another important part of the story. And so, in terms of getting your ducks in a row, you want to get a CPA, hire a CPA, take a look at at least 3 years of returns, to make sure that your P&L makes sense, to make sure that your accounts have been reconciled, and that'd be one of the first things I would do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The second thing I would do, and I see this a lot, if you are you're a small business owner, you should not mingle your personal expenses with your business.
Right.
And it's something that I see all the time, but it borders on unethical many times, but it's also it's very difficult if you're trying to sell, because then you have a lot of noise mixed into your financial reports.
Right.
So, I would suggest,
that can make it a total nightmare to go through the diligence process if you're having to back out, dinners out with the kids out of the expenses and stuff.
Well, yeah. I've seen dinners with kids. I've seen purchases for Hummers. I've seen, phone bills,
it's a
credit
marketing
card,
tool, Matt. Come on, man. It's a marketing tool. You got to wrap that Hummer.
So, I would say, make sure you have a business account and run your business through that business account. So you want to get your bank statements in order, and then, you want to have a crisp understanding of, what are the assets of the business. What do you have? And you should be taking a regular inventory, I would say at least a quarterly inventory of the things that the business owns.
Right.
So, how many trucks you have, how many pressure washers, how many carpet cleaning machines, whatever it is in your business, and that's something that a buyer is gonna want to look through.
Yeah, the asset sheet, if I could just step in real quick, because
Sure.
A lot of the small businesses, Matt, they think that their business is their metal, the truck, the trailer, the press, the $10,000 truck mount, or a carpet cleaner has a $30,000 truck mount or something. They think that that's like the value of their business, but really it's just a mechanism by which they're allowed to do business. And so,
right.
Is there some confusion there with smaller businesses on when they're trying to price their business? They think that you're supposed to buy all their equipment separate and then buy the business separate, but that's not really the way that it works on a larger scale, is it?
No, not at all. Because if you think about it, if you're trying to sell a carpet cleaning business, and let's say you have one carpet cleaning van, well, the value of the business is predicated on that van. So trying to sell those two things separately, if I came in and said, okay, I want to buy your business, and you said, okay, here's the customer list, but you didn't give me the van, then there's no way for me to run the business. Right. So when I go in and buy the business, I want to buy it. I want to buy it so that I can operate it.
Right.
And so, splitting those two up doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Right. And another blind spot is the owner pay. So guys on the internet all the time, they say, "Oh, I did 100,000 this year. My profit was 60,000." And I just shake my head, like hand to forehead, like, "Oh my gosh, you do not understand what you're saying," because they're not accounting for their own labor in the business. And just to be more clear, for the last 2 years I had my business, I only worked about 4 or 5 hours a week in the business. And that's because I had a good team around me. I had good people. I had a business partner. But here's the deal. The guy that made 100 and thinks he has 60,000 in profit doesn't, because of two things. One, he's not backing out his market rate wage for his own self. For example, if he worked, 40 hours a week for 1 year, that's 2,000 hours in a year. And the market rate, let's say, is $20 an hour for an operations manager of a business. That's 40 grand, right? So that 60,000 he thinks he has in earnings, he's got to take that 40 grand right off the top before he can even think about putting a value on the business, because when he sells the business, he's not going with it. And the new guy that buys the business has to pay someone 40 grand to do that job.
Yep.
And so many people miss that. I don't know. I think it's an easy thing. I don't know the phrase for it. Discretionary earnings or something, or whatever it is. But you guys out there that are working for $4 or $5 an hour because you're early in the business, that's completely normal and that's okay. But make sure that when you're thinking long term about things, you got to make a way to push yourself out of the business. And if you're drawing a salary out of the business, that's okay. But if you're working a lot of hours in the business, that has to come off the earnings, because you'll need to be replaced when the person buys you out.
Yep.
Okay, cool. What else is needed there? I mean, 3 years tax returns. We got the P&L. You shouldn't be mingling your accounts. They got an asset sheet. All the stuff they own: the trailers, the buckets, the ladders, whatever.
Yep. I mean, the other thing I'm working on now with my business is really getting crisp documentation around the way that you run the business. So, what are the job descriptions in your company?
Mm-hmm.
What does the employee handbook look like? What does the safety manual look like? The more that you can document and kind of memorialize the processes around the business, the more professional the business looks, and the easier it will be for a buyer to come in and take all that learning. Because a lot of times what happens is the seller keeps so much information in their head that it's not on paper anywhere. And then it makes it very difficult for the buyer to understand, okay, I feel like there's value in this relationship, but I can't find any information about it. Or
Yes.
I think that there's value in these 2 or 3 contracts, but no one's written anything down. How do I follow up?
Yeah.
So the better you can document your day-to-day, the things that you're doing day-to-day to run your business, the easier it will be for a buyer to be attracted and say, hey, this really makes sense. This is something I could move into, I could buy, and I could continue to run.
Absolutely. Over communicate. Quick Talk listeners, you guys over communicate. Put it in your CRM. Take egregious amounts of notes, copious amounts. I think that's the word I meant. Copious amounts of notes. I had notes, Matt, of the lady's cat's name at the little house around the corner there. The notes about the fact that we should shut the back gate for the lady over there. Notes about the email, Facebook, Twitter URL, hobbies, best friend's name, and everything I could find on big commercial lead sources and stuff. And that's just really important. And if it's in your head, it's not part of the asset. So as a rule of thumb, get it out of your head and onto paper. And here's the key. Here's the summary. I want to nutshell our entire segment here talking about this. It's all about the earnings. Guys, if you want to sell your business, you have to create earnings. And here's the deal with earnings. They need to be created without you touching it in an ideal world, okay? If you want the maximum payout when you sell your company, if you want the highest valuation for your business, you need to focus on one thing, write it down: earnings.
I mean, I think if you step back and think about it, why are earnings important? Well, a buyer is looking at future cash flow. That they're trying to figure out, if I buy this business today, how do I project forward my future cash earnings of this business? And how do you do that? Well, you base it on, you look at historicals and you look at kind of industry multiples, and that's how you back into kind of a range of what a business would be worth. So if your business doesn't have any earnings, because I hear this as well, people say to me, well, I did 60, 70, 80, 100,000 in revenue. And I say, yeah, but you have no earnings. You didn't make any money. When you think about earnings as a small business owner, you've got to think about that money that after everyone is paid, including yourself, and all the expenses to run the business are paid. Rent, utilities, supplies, insurance, workers' compensation, all of the things, marketing spend. After all of that is taken out, what's left? Because that's what we call the free cash flow. Now, you can use that free cash flow to pay down debt. You can use it to invest in a new vehicle. You can put it in a bank just to hold it. You can do a lot of things with it. You can, but at the end of the day, that free cash flow, that is what
That's what it's all about.
Determines value. That's
Absolutely. And this can be very depressing for a little guy hearing this for the first time. I totally get it, because you're like, wait, what? My business has no earnings? It's not worth anything? Oh my God. But guys, there's hope, okay? The step one is understanding this stuff. Step two is shaping and molding your company with that understanding. And time's going to go by quickly. And over the next season or two, if you just tweak the way that you look at this stuff, you can dramatically change the business that you have and make it a real asset for your business. There's people like Matt out there. This is a thing. You can exit your company. And guys, don't think that it's possible. But look, get your P&L. Don't mingle your accounts. Keep clean books. Focus on working yourself out of the business slowly. Try to hire a good team. Be a good leader. It can happen. And it doesn't have to take decades to happen. And so I just want to encourage people out there, because it can be depressing to think that you have no earnings, but it can flip so quickly. And the more automated your business is, really the more it's worth, because it's such a smooth transition for the new buyer. Listen up. Now remember, being self-employed is not the same as being a business owner. And if you are looking for a way to automate your business and build yourself a clear path to the dream that keeps eluding you, then check out my online small business bootcamp. It's a go at your own pace, it's power-packed, it's a mind bomb. It will help you understand exactly how to architecture out and systematize your small business right now, so you can finally be back in control. Go to windowwealth.com right now and check it out. Use the code MINDBOMB to save 30%. It's time to invest in yourself. I have a really cool story. Year 2 in my business, it was still tiny. I still had crappy equipment. I was still hustling and grinding. I pulled up to a customer's house, and the truck that I was driving at the time had like really bad tires. Like, they were bald. These tires were like ready to explode at any second. And we were doing okay. I just didn't have time to even think about dealing with it because we're so busy. And this customer walks out, and he's like, let me talk to you for a minute, son. He said, you see that? That's dangerous. Those tires, you need to tell your boss to get those tires fixed. And like, I had a permagrin for 2 days because of that, Matt, because that moment was the first fruit of my efforts to make it about birds beware window cleaning and not about Josh Latimer. Like, that was my focus from the beginning, but that was proof that I was building a brand rather than just me. And this guy just thought I was a crew leader or just some employee, which is perfect. Like, that's awesome, because I was the best freaking crew leader we ever had. I cared more than anybody. So yep. I just want to encourage people listening out there to build with that mentality. I just think it's awesome. And, in closing here, Matt, you have this awesome operation going on, and I want to circle back just briefly on the phone. Do you have any tips call center wise on, maybe the frequency, how often you reach out? Because I know from some of the numbers you shared with me, you can get a huge amount of growth. Like, you can acquire a business that thinks they're killing it, and then plug it into your model there with the phone, the way that you guys handle that, and just extract a ton more money from the same customer list that you just bought. And like you said, you're not hammering people, selling them used cars, in a cheesy way. You're just staying top of mind. Do you have any quick tips before we go that could help people?
Selling over the phone has a lot of scary connotations for a lot of people. So remove that inhibition and just think of it as a regular follow-up. It's a regular touch base with your clients. And I would encourage you, those small business owners out there, one of the things we talked about was kind of trying to remove yourself a little bit. Don't always be the business owners have to be the one making all the calls. Have your assistant make the calls, or your secretary make the calls. Whoever else is in the office as well, get them involved. And these calls can be fun. These calls don't have to be something to dread. And again, if you just pick up the phone and thank the customer for being a customer of yours and just check in on them, you're going to create goodwill you don't even realize. And even if they don't buy now, they may reach back in 3 months and call you just because you made that effort. And again, it's not just about the phone. I mean, there's multiple avenues, and Josh, you certainly, have a good understanding of many of the other ones, but, whether it's a postcard, a handwritten letter, a knock on the door. I mean, any of these kind of personal interactions can bring back huge benefits down the road.
Yeah, and I call each of those interactions a touch. And business owners, they'll get hungry. They go out hunting. They find a new customer, and it's like they kill the gazelle. They eat the gazelle, and then that's it. But they need to look at their customer more like a vegetable rather than a gazelle. Like, they need to water the plant, and like it will produce you veggies, and then you can eat them, but it keeps producing more veggies. Like, the lifetime value of the relationship is so much more powerful than that one stupid transaction. And so, I mean, my software company, SendJim, which I know that you use in your businesses, that business, that's the whole point of it. It manages that relationship marketing. So basically, you push that button at the end of a job, and it's going to automate, that thank you card, a thank you email, customer service email, whatever it is. And it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. It's so easy.
Well, it's also the opportunity to include your crews in your marketing efforts is one of the things I think is the biggest, win, because, that's one of the hardest things to do, because your crews, I always say the crews are your best salesmen, but the crews typically don't like to sell. Mm-hmm. But if your crew can be out there and hit one button and line up 5, 6, 7 interactions down the road with that customer, that's incredibly valuable. That's something that, that's got a ton of potential as we move forward with all the customers that we're touching in the field every day.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's why I built that, and I'm passionate about that. I just think relationships are powerful. Business is built on relationships. Our personal life is built on relationships, and reaching out and saying hi to your customer is a huge deal, guys. So start doing it. My goodness, just do it anyway. And you're not hammering people trying to take their money. You're providing them value. You're providing good service. They like it when you call them. If you have hesitation, hop on the phone and call someone and say, "Hey, Mary, I'm just checking in. How you doing? Is everything good?" Just do that. They're happy. They think you're awesome that you did that. So I just want to encourage everybody. Matt, thank you for taking the time. You're super busy. You're traveling all over the place. And getting an hour from you is a big deal for me, and I just am thankful for it.
All right, Josh. Thanks again for the opportunity to come on, and I wish everyone out there all the best as they kind of grow their businesses and as they move forward as well. Thanks again.
Hey, thanks for hanging out, friends. And from all of us here at the Quick Talk Podcast team, we hope you loved today's show. We hope that you were inspired to become a doer and not just a listener. Apply what you've heard today in your own business and watch things change for the better. Lastly, remember that all the money in the world can't save your soul. Seek first the kingdom of God, my friends. We'll see you next time.
For more information about the Quick Talk Podcast or Joshua's other businesses, visit our website, quicktalkpodcast.com. Have a blessed day.